Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we are going to talk through Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. But before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Okay, let's get started. The author begins by admitting that we have always been an easy target for compliance techniques, whether from salespeople or charities. Interested in why people are more likely to comply with certain requests, the author conducted research experiments in their laboratory. However, they soon realized that they needed to broaden their investigation and understand the techniques used by compliance professionals in the real world. For 3 years, the author immersed themselves in the world of compliance professionals, observing and learning from their tactics, strategies, and materials. The book explores 6 basic principles of influence: consistency, reciprocation, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity, discussing how they are used by compliance professionals to gain compliance from others. The author also includes reader reports from individuals sharing their experiences of falling victim to these principles in their everyday lives. Automatic, stereotyped behavior in humans can be exploited by others. Cialdini explores various examples, such as the use of the word because to trigger compliance, the influence of price on perceived quality, and the reliance on stereotypes and shortcuts in decision-making. He also draws parallels to the behavior of animals and how certain species mimic trigger features to manipulate others. He highlights the vulnerability of humans to those who understand the power of automatic influence and explains how these exploiters employ various weapons, such as psychological principles and stereotypes, to manipulate others without appearing manipulative. Overall, the author emphasizes the prevalence and importance of automatic behavior in human actions and the need for awareness and understanding of its influence. The rule of reciprocation states that we should try to repay what others have provided us with. This rule is deeply ingrained in human culture and is pervasive in exchanges of all kinds. The sense of obligation that comes with reciprocation is so strong that it has been suggested as a unique adaptive mechanism of human beings. The concept of reciprocation allows for the division of labor, the exchange of goods and services, and the creation of interdependencies. The writer provides examples of how the rule of reciprocation is used to influence behavior, such as in the sales tactics of clothing stores and car dealerships. Overall, the rule of reciprocation is a powerful social influence that can be exploited in various contexts. An experiment conducted by Professor Dennis Regan of Cornell University is used as an example. In the experiment, participants rated the quality of paintings alongside an assistant who posed as a fellow participant. In some cases, the assistant did a small favor for the participant by getting them a Coke during a break. Later, the assistant asked the participant to buy raffle tickets for a car. The study found that participants who received the earlier favor were more likely to buy tickets from the assistant, regardless of whether they actually liked him or not. This demonstrates the overpowering nature of the reciprocity rule, which can lead people to feel obligated to comply with requests after receiving a favor. The book also mentions examples of how this rule is used in other contexts, such as by the Hare Krishna Society and in politics and marketing. Cialdini explains how Amway representatives use the bug device to trap customers into feeling obligated to order their products. He then gives examples outside of commercial exchanges to illustrate the extent of the reciprocity rule's influence, such as a German soldier who spared an enemy soldier's life after the soldier offered him a piece of bread, and a woman who saved her life by refusing favors from a cult leader. He also mentions that uninvited favors can still create a sense of indebtedness, and organizations like the Hare Krishna Society and charity agencies exploit this by giving unsolicited gifts to prompt donations. Additionally, the reciprocity rule can be used to trigger unfair exchanges, where a small initial favor can lead to a much larger return favor. The feeling of indebtedness is unpleasant, and people are motivated to remove it by reciprocating the favors they have received. Humans have been trained from childhood to feel obligated to repay favors, and violating this rule can lead to social disapproval. This psychological burden of debt can lead individuals to perform larger favors than they received in order to relieve themselves of the guilt. The author also introduces the concept of reciprocal concessions, where making a concession to someone increases the likelihood of them complying with a request. This is illustrated through an example of a Boy Scout selling tickets in candy bars, where the initial request for tickets was followed by a smaller request for the candy bars, resulting in compliance. The rejection then retreat technique is also mentioned as a compliance tactic, where making a large request and then following with a smaller one increases the chance of compliance. This technique is shown to be effective in an experiment where the percentage of compliance tripled when the initial extreme request was followed by a zoo trip request. This technique is used not only in personal situations, but also in labor negotiations and television production. Cialdini discusses the effectiveness of the rejection-then-retreat technique in increasing the success of door-to-door sales. By first making a larger request, such as asking for a higher price, and then retreating to a smaller request, sales operators can take advantage of the reciprocity rule and the perceptual contrast principle to make the smaller request seem more reasonable and attractive. This technique can also be used to secure referrals from customers who have refused to purchase, as individuals are more likely to agree to provide names of others who may be interested in the product as a concession for refusing to make a purchase. The author also relates the application of this technique to the Watergate scandal, suggesting that it may have influenced decision-making in that context. Additionally, he examines the psychological factors that make the rejection-then-retreat technique effective and shows that victims of this technique are more likely to follow through with agreements and future requests. Starting with an extreme demand and then gradually retreating to a more moderate one is the most effective strategy for gaining concessions from the opponent. The study found that subjects who faced an opponent using this strategy felt more responsible for influencing the outcome of the negotiation, even though the opponent's retreat was predetermined by the experimenter. Additionally, the subjects who were targeted with this strategy were the most satisfied with the final arrangement, leading them to be more willing to agree to further requests. The author then transitions to discussing the reciprocation rule and how it can be used as a weapon of influence. He discusses the power of consistency in human behavior and decision-making. Humans have a strong desire to appear consistent with their previous choices and commitments, which leads to self-justification and self-delusion. People convince themselves to believe in the correctness of a difficult choice once it has been made. Influence of consistency in social situations where individuals take actions that are contrary to their best interests. Cialdini emphasizes the value of consistency in general and how it is associated with logic, rationality, stability, and personal strength. However, blind consistency can lead to automatic and unthinking responses, which can be exploited by others for their own benefit. During the Christmas season, toy sales skyrocket, but afterward, there is a significant decline in sales. Toy companies face the challenge of maintaining sales during this post-holiday slump. While children are naturally inclined to want new toys, parents who have already spent their toy budgets are resistant to buying more. Traditional sales tactics like increased advertising or reduced prices have proven unsuccessful in increasing post-holiday toy sales. However, some toy companies have found a solution by leveraging the power of consistency and commitment. By creating a scarcity of certain toys before Christmas and then running ads for those same toys after the holiday, they tap into the commitment parents made to their children and trigger the desire to fulfill those promises. This strategy exploits the psychological principle that once we commit to something, we tend to be consistent with that commitment. Small commitments are powerful in influencing a person's behavior and self-image. The author highlights the Chinese use of small acts of collaboration to manipulate prisoners of war during the Korean War. The Chinese understood that getting prisoners to write or express support for their cause would create a sense of commitment and consistency, leading the prisoners to believe in the Chinese ideology. This tactic is compared to the foot-in-the-door technique used by salespeople to obtain a small commitment from customers, which increases the likelihood of them making larger purchases later. Being cautious about agreeing to trivial requests is important, as they can shape our self-image and influence our future behavior. Cialdini also mentions how businesses use written commitments to boost sales and customer loyalty. such as asking staff to set sales goals and write them down. Public commitments tend to be more lasting, as individuals strive to maintain consistency and avoid appearing inconsistent to others. He provides examples from experiments in real-life situations to demonstrate the impact of written commitments on decision-making and behavior change. Initiation rituals, characterized by hardships and humiliations, have been observed in both tribal and fraternal societies. While these rituals may seem extreme and bizarre, they serve a vital function for the groups that undergo them. Research conducted in the field of social psychology suggests that individuals who go through significant trouble or pain to attain something tend to value it more highly than those who attain it easily. The same principle applies to initiation ceremonies. The harshness and rigors of these rituals increase the commitment of newcomers to the group. The commitment, in turn, fosters a sense of loyalty and dedication, contributing to the group's cohesiveness and survival. Attempts to abolish or modify these initiation practices have been met with resistance as the groups recognize their importance in maintaining group solidarity. Cialdini's book discusses the importance of inner responsibility and commitment in influencing behavior. It highlights the ineffectiveness of strong external pressures, such as rewards or threats, in creating lasting commitment. An experiment by Jonathan Friedman is mentioned, where boys were instructed not to play with a forbidden toy. When a severe threat was used, they complied while under observation but later ignored the rule. However, when no threat was used and the instruction alone was given, the boys took personal responsibility for their choice not to play with the toy, even in the absence of the experimenter. Cialdini then mentions the relevance of these findings in parenting and the importance of using subtle reasons to encourage desired behavior in children. He discusses the power of commitments to produce inner change and the way in which commitments create their own support systems. The concept of lowballing in car sales is used as an example of exploiting commitment to influence decisions. Lowballing involves making a person feel pleased with a poor choice. Individuals can fall victim to lowballing in various situations, such as in relationships or business dealings. A study conducted in Iowa demonstrates how the lowball technique can be used to influence homeowners to conserve energy. The study involved promising homeowners newspaper publicity for their energy-saving efforts and then retracting the promise. Surprisingly, the homeowners continued to conserve even after the promise had been revoked. He concludes by discussing the importance of recognizing when consistency may lead to a poor choice and using one's intuition to avoid falling victim to manipulative tactics. The principle of social proof states that one way we determine what is correct is by observing what other people think is correct. This principle applies particularly to our behavior and can influence our decisions. The author provides an example of how television executives use canned laughter to manipulate the audience. Despite the audience recognizing that the laughter is fake, the use of canned laughter increases their laughter and perception of humor. This is because people tend to follow the behavior of others, even if it is artificially created. Social proof is a powerful tool that can influence our actions and decisions, even when we are aware that it is being used to manipulate us. The principle of social proof emerges as both a strength and a weakness. On one hand, it serves as a convenient shortcut for determining appropriate behavior. However, it also makes individuals vulnerable to deception when relying on partial or fake evidence. The example of canned laughter illustrates this concept, as individuals become so accustomed to basing their laughter on the reactions of others that they can be fooled by fraudulent laughter. Similarly, various individuals and organizations exploit social proof for personal gain. Examples include bartenders, church ushers, salesmen, advertisers, and charity telethons. Moreover, research has demonstrated the powerful effect of social proof on changing behavior. For instance, psychologists have shown that exposure to film clips of children engaging in desired behaviors can effectively eliminate phobias and social withdrawal. Festinger, Reichen, in Schachter's study on a doomsday cult in Chicago, exemplifies how social proof can influence individuals to maintain their beliefs even after disconfirmation. Overall, social proof can be a potent force in shaping human behavior and beliefs. Cialdini then describes the reactions and behavior of a group known as the Chicago Believers after their prophecy of a flood and alien rescue fails to come true. Initially, the group is disheartened and experiences a sense of despair and confusion as they re-examine their beliefs. However, they quickly shift gears and become fervent in their mission to spread their message to the public. This sudden change in behavior is attributed to their need for social proof and validation of their beliefs. The phenomenon of pluralistic ignorance, which occurs when people look to others for guidance in ambiguous situations but fail to realize that others are doing the same. Additionally, the author briefly mentions the case of Catherine Genovese, where multiple bystanders failed to intervene or call the police while she was being attacked. The writer then discusses the phenomenon of bystander apathy and the reasons why individuals fail to help in emergency situations. He starts by highlighting an infamous case where 38 witnesses did not intervene to save a woman who was being attacked. He argues that the lack of action was not due to fear or indifference, but rather a psychological phenomenon called pluralistic ignorance. When multiple bystanders are present, everyone assumes someone else will help, leading to inaction. The book also presents research by psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley, who found that individuals are more likely to help in emergencies when they are certain it is an emergency and when there are no other bystanders present. Emergency victims can increase their chances of receiving help by clearly stating their need for assistance to a specific individual in the crowd. The principle of social proof plays a significant role in influencing human behavior. When in need of emergency help, it is crucial to reduce uncertainties and be precise about the need for aid to avoid the bystander effect. Requesting assistance from a single individual, rather than making a general request to a group, increases the likelihood of receiving help. The principle of social proof is most effective when observing the behavior of similar individuals, as their actions provide insight into what is considered correct behavior. The impact of similar others on behavior is evident in various situations, such as testimonials in advertisements and peer-led programs for children. Additionally, Cialdini highlights the Werther effect, where highly publicized suicide stories can lead to an increase in suicide rates among troubled individuals who imitate the behavior. The Werther effect, named after a novel in which the main character dies by suicide, suggests that the more publicity given to a suicide, the greater the number of copycats. These copycat suicides may not always be straightforward, as some individuals may cause accidents to make their deaths look accidental. The author believes that these findings can explain the increase in car and airplane crashes that occur after front-page suicides. The principle of social proof, where people imitate the actions of others, may play a role in copycat suicides. The author also discusses the influence of highly publicized acts of violence, such as boxing matches, on subsequent homicides. The writer concludes by examining the mass suicide at Jonestown and how the principle of social proof and relocation to an unfamiliar environment may have led to the followers' compliance with the suicidal command. Cialdini suggests that individuals need to be vigilant and recognize when social proof is being used to manipulate them. He also encourages readers to take action against those who exploit social proof by refusing to support products or services featured in deceptive advertisements. Additionally, social proof can lead to accidents or errors, such as in traffic situations. Individuals should critically assess situations instead of blindly following the crowd. People tend to look to others for guidance on how to behave in a given situation, can lead to errors or negative consequences. The author gives examples such as drivers on a freeway following each other without considering the true condition of the road, and buffalo blindly following each other into danger. The author also mentions the power of the liking rule, which states that people are more likely to say yes to someone they know and like. He highlights how companies and individuals use this principle to influence others, such as the use of Tupperware parties, to create a sense of friendship and obligation to purchase products. Physical attractiveness is another factor that influences liking and the potential consequences of this unconscious bias. Research has shown that physical attractiveness plays a significant role in the legal system. Good-looking people tend to receive preferential treatment, such as lighter sentences and higher compensation in negligence cases. Attractive individuals are also more likely to receive help and be perceived as having better personality traits and intelligence. This advantage starts early in life, as teachers view attractive children more favorably. Compliance professionals also exploit the halo effect of physical attractiveness, using it to gain people's liking and compliance. Additionally, similarity is another factor that influences liking and compliance. People are more likely to comply with those who appear similar to them in opinions, dress, and backgrounds. Compliments and claims of affinity are effective in producing liking and compliance, as people have a natural tendency to believe and like those who praise them. Finally, familiarity also influences liking, although simply increasing contact between individuals from different ethnic backgrounds does not necessarily lead to greater liking and can even increase prejudice. The competitive nature of classrooms can hinder positive interaction and understanding between students of different ethnicities. Despite the challenges, pursuing school integration is still important for improving academic performance and opportunities for minority students. Cialdini's book discusses the concept of cooperative learning as a potential solution to racial hostility in schools. It refers to the research of Muzaffer Sharif, who conducted a study in which boys at a summer camp were separated into two groups and encouraged to compete with one another. This resulted in increased hostility and conflict between the groups. However, when the boys were given tasks that required cooperation and mutual benefit, such as fixing a broken truck or dealing with a water supply issue, the animosity between the groups diminished. The author also mentions the success of the jigsaw classroom approach, in which students work together in teams to master a subject. This cooperative learning method has been shown to reduce prejudice and improve academic performance. Overall, he highlights the potential of cooperative learning in fostering positive relationships among students of different racial backgrounds. Cialdini then introduces the technique of good cop, bad cop, where one police officer plays the role of the aggressive, angry interrogator, bad cop, and the other plays the role of the calm, sympathetic interrogator, good cop. This technique is effective because it instills fear in the suspect with threats of harsh punishment, creates contrast between the two interrogators, and establishes a sense of teamwork and support with the suspect. The principle of association explains how people tend to dislike those associated with bad news or bad things, and like those associated with good things. This principle is demonstrated through the experiences of weather forecasters who face backlash from viewers despite being unrelated to the weather itself. Marketers and advertisers use the principle of association to connect their products to positive concepts or celebrities to increase desirability and influence consumer behavior. The idea comes from Ivan Pavlov's experiments with conditioning animals to associate certain stimuli with specific responses. This principle can be applied to humans as well, as demonstrated by Raison's luncheon technique, which linked positive feelings towards food to other unrelated things, such as political statements. People often unconsciously adopt the association principle in their own lives, preferring to connect themselves with positive events and separate from negative ones. This is particularly evident in sports, where fans passionately align themselves with their hometown teams and experience a personal stake in their victories or defeats. Individuals try to enhance their public image by showcasing their connections to winners and avoiding association with losers. This can be seen in the pronouns used when discussing team outcomes, with fans using we to describe victories and they to distance themselves from losses. A psychological study that explores the human inclination to restore a damaged public image by associating with successful others. The study involved Arizona State University students who were given a general knowledge test, rigged so that some students would fail while others would do well. The students who experienced recent image damage from failing the test showed a strong desire to manipulate their connections with the football team to salvage their prestige. They used the pronoun we more when describing a home team victory compared to a defeat. On the other hand, students who did well on the test did not have a significant difference in using we when describing a victory or defeat. Individuals seeking prestige through association, such as name-droppers and stage mothers. Additionally, the writer suggests a strategy for countering the influence of liking in compliance situations, focusing on recognizing and reacting to undue liking for a compliance practitioner. A psychological experiment conducted by a professor named Milgram. Participants in the experiment, acting as teachers, were directed to administer electric shocks to a person, the learner, every time they answered a question incorrectly. The shocks increased in intensity with each mistake. Despite the learner's pleas for mercy and release, about 2/3 of the participants continued to administer shocks until the highest level was reached. The experiment revealed that people have a disturbing tendency to obey authority, even when it involves causing harm to others. Several explanations for this behavior, such as aggressive tendencies or a lack of awareness of the harm being caused, have been proposed and disproven. The author argues that the main reason for this obedience is a deep-seated sense of duty to authority figures. The implications of this obedience are unsettling, as it raises concerns about the potential for government authority to elicit obedience, even in morally questionable situations. Cialdini discusses the power and value of obedience in our culture by examining the stories of Abraham and Milgram's subjects. He acknowledges that obedience often occurs without conscious deliberation and can be a valuable shortcut for decision-making. He then focuses on the medical field as an example, highlighting the automatic obedience to authority figures, particularly doctors, which can lead to errors in healthcare. He stresses the importance of questioning authority even in situations where it may seem unnecessary, as blindly obeying can lead to mistakes. Use of symbols of authority, such as titles, can influence behavior, even when there is no genuine substance of authority. Several experiments demonstrate how people are more likely to comply with requests or directives from figures of authority, even when they may not be experts in the relevant field. The experiments show that clothing, such as uniforms or business suits, can be powerful symbols of authority and can evoke automatic obedience from individuals. Cialdini's book also emphasizes the importance of critically evaluating authority figures and their credentials before blindly following their instructions. Two key questions are proposed as a defense mechanism. Is this authority truly an expert? And how truthful can we expect the expert to be here? By asking these questions and being mindful of the influence of authority, individuals can resist undue influence and make more informed decisions. The author introduces the principle of scarcity and its influence on human decision-making. He begins with an anecdote about his desire to visit a restricted section of a Mormon temple simply because it would soon become unavailable. This illustrates how limited availability can make something more attractive to us. He then explores various examples of the scarcity principle, such as the influence it has on collectibles and the use of the limited number tactic in sales. The author also highlights the effectiveness of selling a product at its scarcest point, increasing its value in the eyes of customers. Scarcity can greatly impact our perception of value and drive our actions. It is often used by salespeople to manipulate customers into making a purchase. The principle involves creating a sense of urgency and limited availability, which increases the perceived value of the product. Customers are asked to commit to buying the product when it appears to be least available, and when more supply is found, they are presented with a sales contract and pen to confirm their purchase. By this point, customers feel invested in the decision and are unlikely to back out. Cialdini also describes the tactics used by boiler room operations, which involve high-pressure sales tactics and deception to extract large sums of money from unsuspecting customers. These scams rely on the scarcity principle and the fear of missing out on a lucrative opportunity. Psychological reactance theory is also discussed, which explains the human response to diminishing personal control and how people desire to retain their freedoms. It is suggested that reactance emerges at around the age of 2 and continues throughout one's life. Psychological reactance can shape human behavior. The author highlights examples such as cigarette ads targeting women and the rise in teenage female smokers, as well as gun ownership in Kennesaw, Georgia, and the ban on phosphate detergents in Miami. Psychological reactance occurs when our freedom or access to something is restricted, leading to an increased desire for it. This desire often leads us to assign positive qualities to the restricted item or information to justify our desire. Cialdini also explores how censorship, both in terms of restricted information and official bans, can actually increase our desire for the restricted content. In a consumer preference study, participants who were told about the impending scarcity of beef bought more than twice as much compared to those who only heard the standard sales pitch. Furthermore, those who received exclusive information about the scarcity purchased 6 times the amount. When scarcity is newly experienced, it has a more powerful effect compared to constant scarcity. This principle can be seen in various contexts, including political revolutions and family dynamics. Additionally, competition for limited resources also amplifies the desire for those resources. Advertisers often exploit this tendency by creating a sense of competition or urgency to drive sales. Overall, scarcity, especially when newly experienced or associated with competition, can significantly influence human behavior and decision-making. Cialdini recounts a story of Barry Diller, a businessman who made a costly purchase decision in an open bid auction. The auction format, combined with the scarcity of the movie being offered, led to a bidding frenzy and an excessive price being paid. Our emotional reaction to scarcity can cloud our judgment and hinder our ability to think rationally. While scarcity may increase the perceived value of an item, it does not necessarily enhance its actual utility or quality. Ultimately, the writer suggests that recognizing the emotional influence of scarcity